with Andrew Chelby and Nick Zararis.
Rangers fans, welcome to the best Rangers podcast in town. I am Andrew Chelney alongside Nick Zararis, and we are Liberty Blue. We scream about the Rangers so that you can save your voice. That's how deeply we care about you, and we appreciate that you've joined us for the ride. This is episode 29, live on Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube, pre-recording this just a couple hours early because of scheduling things, but hopefully our guy Christopher, we know Christopher very well, doesn't do anything drastic between now and when this airs in a few hours. We'll put the full video up on our YouTube at Liberty Blue Podcast, and the audio version will be available as an audio podcast as well. Search Liberty Blue on your favorite podcast platform, and it should be there. Give the show that shiny and illustrious 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. It means the world to us, and it helps the show more than you think it does. At Liberty Blue Pod on Twitter and Instagram, I am at Chelney Andrew, Chelney Andrew, alongside Nick Zararis, Nick Zararis. Those are our personal handles to follow as well. Nick, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you as well, Andrew. That 5 o'clock game that everybody was violently hungover for, that more people were watching the NFL, fantasy championships being decided yesterday, but there was hockey yesterday. 3 games since we last talked to you guys, a little bit to dive into, but we're in the dog days of the NHL season. We're just about at that midway point where we're going to start seeing who's going to actually be a playoff team and who's going to fall out. We would like to thank the Florida Panthers for eliminating themselves more or less from playoff contention. We are in the first week of January, and the Panthers are already in the low 30s for playoff probabilities. So that's one less team the Rangers have to worry about for as far as the wild card is concerned. But it is going to be tough here. The Metropolitan Division has a handful of teams that are all going to be in the mix for this second wild card. The Islanders lost last night, looked very bad against the Kraken. They're kind of in a weird spot. The Hurricanes keep rolling along, who the Rangers are going to see this week. The Devils have kind of come back to earth and are back to being somewhat of a good team as opposed to one of the best teams in the league. The Winter Classic is like in an hour and a half, which I forgot about until yesterday. So where do you want to start, Andrew? Lots to discuss.
Yeah, well, I think we have to start with the Capitals game here, because you take a look at where they were at the time, and you think to yourself, and we talked about this last week too, where the Rangers needed to not only win this game, but they needed to win in regulation. This was such an important game in terms of standings. This is your division rival. This is a team that is right with you in points. This was a must needed win for this team. And not only did they lose, they looked awful. For the vast majority of the game, look at the Rangers didn't want to be there. It looked like they just kind of were skating around Rockefeller Center as opposed to actually playing a hockey game. And I don't know what this stems from, because there are times along the season, and that's not the first time that we've talked about the Rangers' lack of expression of want to win a hockey game. There's been times throughout the season where they looked really good, and there have been times where they look like they just don't care. And I don't know where that stems from. I'm not sure what causes that to happen, but you would think of all games, maybe the Rangers would look bad against Florida, but look really good against Washington, because again, division rival, you want to beat your division rival, all these things. Tom Wilson, I know he's not playing, but the history is there. You would expect the Rangers to show up for that game, but they didn't. They were there physically. End of sentence. They weren't doing much of anything on the offense, and they kind of just left Shesterkin hung out to dry, got shut out in their own building, and they didn't look good. And it kind of just baffles me as to where this inconsistency of effort comes from. Sometimes they look like they're involved and they want to play, and they get the cycle going, and they're throwing pucks on net, and they get the hustle plays and all that. They look really good. And then there's games like Washington where you look at them and you go like, what are you doing? Like, hello, is anybody there?
It's even worse when you consider the fact that Washington had to travel Tuesday morning to come to New York or in the middle of the night to play that game. And a lot of people will say, well, the Rangers 3 days off, 4 days off, whatever it was for the Christmas break, a little sloppy. And yeah, the Trouba goal, I'm calling it a Trouba goal because he tipped it into his own net. That was a Trouba goal.
Yep.
And you saw it in his face. He was frantically sweeping his stick at that puck like it was a broom, trying to knock it away from the net and batted it into his own net. I think it was the third Washington goal. Trocheck just left the puck in the neutral zone, turned it over. Washington came down and scored on a 2-on-1 where Trouba was the last guy back. Trouba didn't step up. He could have had a play on the puck if he had stepped up to either play the shot or the pass. He didn't play either. And then an empty net goal. That's 3 goals right there out of 4. Yeah, you could say a little bit tighter. Probably only 1 or 2 of those happens, and maybe 2-0 game, a little bit different 4-0 as far as how you feel about it. But my biggest gripe, and you were talking about the inconsistency, and that's one of the differences between good teams and average teams is, and maybe the talent isn't there to be a consistently good team, but there's plenty of talent on this team. And a lot of this, again, stems from mental stuff and execution stuff. That is correctable things. Those are things that are fixable with repetition and clear process. And that's what we get so frustrated about. That's why it's very easy for everybody to get mad with the coach and get mad with things that are changeable, because you can't change the 18 skaters and the 2 goalies. You can't. You can change 1 or 2 of them at the most. When it's repeatedly execution and attitude and energy, that reflects on how the team prepares for things, what they do in practice, what the coach emphasizes and makes points of emphasis during pre-scouting and things for upcoming matchups. That's why everybody gets so mad at the coach. And then the coach does irrational things where everybody can say it was 1 game, they scratched Lafreniere just to send a message to kind of wake them up, say, hey, you need to sit for a game, whatever. There were like 5 guys you could have healthy bombed after the game on Tuesday for playing awful. And again, it was a younger guy because Gallant feels you can't healthy scratch the guys who make a lot of money. You can healthy scratch the kids because
Right.
giving them a lesson. I just want to know, where was Trocheck's lesson for the turnover that directly led to the Washington goal? Where was Trouba's lesson for tapping the puck into his own net? It's not that we want the team to play badly. It's that if you are going to preach accountability and that everybody's going to get a fair shake here, you can't just choose to punish the younger players who aren't making a lot of money and don't have as much influence. That's just not fair. And yeah, you can say they need to earn it and they need to play better to earn that. What would you like them to do? They are playing 12 minutes a night, 13 minutes a night. They are not getting power play time. You are asking them to do jobs that are not conducive with their skill sets. What would you like them to do? We saw Kako Zibanejad, and Kreider be one of the best first lines in hockey for the first month of the season. They had 1 bad game in Detroit, and it took 3 months to get that line back together, and that line was outstanding against the Panthers on Sunday. It's not just being like fed up with the coach. It's just constantly having the same questions over and over again. And that's why you get tired of the coach. It's not that, do I think Gallant versus insert random Canadian or American white guy makes that much of a big difference? Not particularly, no. But when the same guy does the same thing over and over again, and he can't even be bothered to explain his decisions because
Because he knows better than you.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. It's like arguing with your dad. It's like arguing
Right.
with your parents. Well, because I said so. Well, Gerard, that's great and all, but if you would like to win something, you're going to need these guys to be something for you. And constantly messing with their confidence and healthy bombing them over guys who are more established, those are the guys you need to be delicate with. And this was a real discussion going into the game on Sunday because they lost the 2 games. They played good against Tampa, and we'll talk about the Tampa game too. But this was a real, got to a fervor by Sunday of, well, this team is drafted X number of times in the top 10, X number of times in the top 20. What do they have to show for it over the last 10, 15 years? You know, the Rangers have had 2 drafted forwards in the history of the team score 70 points in a season, and the second one only happened last year when Kreider did it. So this is clearly not just a these young guys thing. This is an organizational philosophy thing.
The thing, and we got this argument last week, and I posted this on Twitter at Liberty Blue Pod. If you're not following, should do, and you're missing out on some great content there. We got a tweet that was along the lines of, oh, Lafreniere should act like a number one pick if he wants to be treated as one. Well, and I quote tweeted it and I said this, like this, because the argument is ridiculous. The argument's absolutely asinine because one, Lafreniere's playing his off wing. He is off wing. He's not playing where he's normally comfortable in. He's not getting top 6 minutes. That's 2. 3, he is not getting power play time, and he doesn't have a long leash. So like he is a number one overall pick with none of the number one overall pick amenities. He gets 11 minutes a night, 12 minutes a night. Galan is putting him in a blender with all different kinds of bottom 6 guys and occasionally top 6 guys.
Sure.
And if he has like 1 shift, 2 shifts, and that doesn't work, all of a sudden Lafreniere's back on the 4th line. Like he gets 0 of the amenities that a normal number one, even a top 5 pick would get in this situation. He gets none of it. And whenever he's thrown out on the ice, you expect him to score you a hat trick. Like that's not how it works. You have to give your top prospects a long leash, more ice time, and the Rangers were in a weird situation because they weren't expecting to win Lafreniere, and they just kind of got gifted Lafreniere. And the expectation for him now is, well, you're number one pick, go out there and do hockey things. Well, the problem with going out there and doing hockey things is unless you're Connor McDavid or Sidney Crosby, you need time. You need to figure out, okay, I'm at the NHL level now. Here, I've been doing this in junior. I've been doing this and whatever, and this is how I tweak it to be really good here, and this is how I adjust my defensive stick where it used to work here, but now it's not working anymore. How do I change my mentality? Like, there's so many little things that players have to adjust when they first make it to the NHL. By not allowing your prospects the room to make those mistakes early on and fix them and learn from them and be better, how do you expect them to grow as players? Even if you are a number one overall player that Lafreniere is, he still needs room to breathe. If you're terrified of making a mistake because you're going to be sitting on the bench for the next 5 games and you're a number one overall pick, then like you're not going to make that play. You're going to be scared to make a mistake to not get benched. And that's what Gallant right now is doing with Lafreniere. Like the dynamic right now isn't working, and it's been a consistent throughout not just Gallant, but for the Rangers for a long while now, where they got top prospects and all this talent and haven't really done a whole lot with them.
I pulled it up here. This is the just time on ice. This is all situations smoothed out. I mean, Lafreniere is getting less minutes than Kakko, than VZ, than Gaudreau. VZ and Gaudreau, they both kill penalties. They're both usually getting, significant time killing penalties there. That's why they're ahead of him. But again, we've talked about this ad nauseum, and I've spent the better part of the last 3 years talking about this. It is great that they were able to make the run they made last year. They did not win a Stanley Cup, and they didn't win a Stanley Cup. They didn't give their young guys any room to grow into bigger roles. And now that the time has come for they need those young guys to fulfill big roles, and they're not doing it. They're feeling the pressure of the situation. And it is why the coach is doing dramatic things like healthy bombing a first overall pick 3 years into his NHL career. That is the action of a coach who is trying to do anything to get the player going, but not really at addressing the problem at hand here, which is confidence and fit. The Rangers have all of these high-end players, and we've been talking about this all season now. They still have not found the optimal situation and the optimal situation for each of these guys. They have talented players, but still, Trocheck and Panarin doesn't really jive. They don't really click well together. They haven't really figured out what they want to do with Lafreniere, where they want to play him, and who they're going to play him with. They found a good spot for Kakko and then took him away from that spot for 3.5 months for no real reason other than the coach doesn't really feel confident in him. Because that's really the only argument for Gaudreau playing on that first line for about 3-4 weeks, whatever it was, that the coach trusts Gaudreau more for whatever reason. And the thing that really irked me last week was when Gallant said last week, the game isn't for developing. The game isn't for learning. That's what practice is for. You can never get... that's an asinine statement.
Thing I've ever heard.
It's an asinine statement. Yeah, you can try to simulate game conditions in practice. It's not the same thing. No matter how rigid you think you run your practice, It is not a game situation. You are
You
never
hear
going to get
you hear players say it
confidence.
all the time. You
Yeah.
hear players all the time coming back from injury. You hear them
Yeah.
always say, we can practice all we want, but it's not a game, so we can't, you can practice all you want, but it's not a game scenario. It's not, you're not battling. Like you hear players every day saying that, like you can't, you can only learn so much in practice. So Gallant saying that is ridiculous. It is absolutely ridiculous.
And one of the things, and I know I get this a lot from people, and I subscribe to this theory too, that coaches say obnoxious things like that. So people talk about them as opposed to the players, and it takes attention off of the players and it makes it about the coach. And it can be a useful tool. But every now and then, I would just like to hear something out of Gallant's mouth that inspires a little bit of confidence that he understands what the problem at hand is. Because anytime there's a problem, he just juggles the lines and waits for it to get going again. And again, when you are constantly juggling the lines, you cannot get a feel for who you're playing with. It is hard to build confidence because you're one mistake away from playing with different people. And it's really hard to get in. I mean, Lafreniere said it himself the other day about it's been really hard for me to find a spot I'm comfortable in because I've been with so many different people this year. At some point, you need to realize that you're going to sink or swim with what you got. Yeah, you might add one forward at the deadline. That's only going to be for this year. This is more or less the team. Unless they can get more out of these young guys, all they're going to have to show for it are a couple playoff appearances. Because right now, this team doesn't feel particularly threatening. It's not consistent enough to be threatening.
It's you don't know what kind of team you're going to see game in and game out,
Yeah.
and that is at the core one of the biggest issues with this hockey team right now. Is one game they look really good, and Trocheck as we saw in Florida, got that really good defensive play in the power play. Then he went on the 2-on-1 and they scored. Right, like that was a really good play out of any Trocheck. Like I would love to see more of that out of him. Please and thank you. But there's one that we have that game against Florida where they look good, and then they have that game against Washington. This was the same week. It's like 6 days apart. They looked terrible against Washington. They looked pretty good against Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay didn't want to be there for half the game. They got one fluky goal, and that was really all they needed. The Rangers got goalied. Listen, those things
It
happen.
happens.
The Rangers will take that point. They played well. And they played well against Florida-ish. Yarrow Halak just played really well, and they kind of stole that game. Also, Bobrovsky, bad, but just the overarching concern, at least for me anyway, right now is what team is this? Because on one day they look really good, and the very next day they play somebody new and they look like trash. It's the same team. Same system, same personnel, same everything, and day to day you have no idea what you're going to expect when you watch them. It's very very strange, and I don't know how to fix it really, because this seems like an internal issue. This seems like, because if the system hasn't changed and nothing else has changed, then why is there such a drastic change in the way the Rangers approach game day? That to me is the biggest question that I have, because it's if everything else is zero, then why is the answer not zero?
It's a fair question. I'm going to pull it up here. This is the shot map from the game against Washington, the pie chart. So, one of the questions I often get from people is how come the Rangers lose games where they have the decided edge and like the deserve a winometer from Money Puck or things like this, where the Rangers very clearly got shut out. They didn't score a single goal, but they won the expected goals battle. The thing I want to point out about this is the expected goals, they are context dependent. Why, if you don't know what you're looking at, this could be confusing for you. But remember, the Rangers get behind in a game, they're going to start throwing pucks at the net more. Washington is going to take more of a defensive posture. They're not going to be as aggressive offensively. They're going to be willing to concede scoring chances against because they're going to be from low danger areas. And because the Rangers are more desperate to try and score, the Rangers are going to take lower quality shots because they're going to be flinging it from every direction. And that's why you get things like this. That's why the Rangers had almost 4 expected goals in this game to Washington's 2.6. This is hockeyviz.com's expected goals model. Every website's going to have slightly different ones because they calculate it in slightly different ways. But for all intents and purposes, when a team gets behind big, you will typically see them end up winning the expected goals battle because the other team isn't going to be as as aggressive offensively, and that's why you get things like this. Again, when the Rangers play games like this where they look awful, you look at the Heat, you look at the shot charts and who's taking the best scoring chances and where they're coming from. You're going to see the ugly guys in the bottom six. You're going to see the VZs, the Gautiers, the guys who are going to the net with no real, just they're going to the net because that's the best chance to score from. And you don't see Kreider, you don't see Zibanejad, you don't see Panarin on the shot maps, especially in good areas. You got a couple that are okay in there. You've got some Zibanejad ones from in between the circles. You've got a couple Trocheck ones from in between the circles, but Panarin, top of the circles in the point, not particularly dangerous areas. You get one Kreider scoring chance from between the circles, not particularly dangerous. That's the thing. Oh, and we haven't even talked about the fact that the Rangers missed the net an absurd amount.
Absurd amount of time. Yeah.
Like, I get it against Tampa where like it's Vasilevsky. So you're really trying to pick your corners. But like at some point, maybe shoot for the rebound. Just at some point, you're gonna have to concede. It's gonna have to be an ugly one to beat a really good goalie. That's the thing. And we've seen the Rangers unwilling to play that kind of game because it's not what their skill set supports. But at some point, again, like we've been talking about, something has to change. You can't just keep doing the same thing over and over again and expecting dramatically different results.
The thing about what the Rangers are doing as opposed to some other teams, if you remember the Pittsburgh Penguins during their cup runs, the one thing that they would do that Mike Sullivan coached very well in, and they did a lot during the playoffs, was they would shoot at pads. On the
Yeah.
Pittsburgh Penguins, on if they were on an odd man rush, if they were on a break, if they had numbers going in the offensive zone, what they would do is a lot of the times if they can't get a perfect clean shot, they would shoot at the other leg, right? Like if you're coming down the right end, you'd shoot at the left pad, or you would shoot at the if you're coming well, you would shoot at the
You're
pad
shooting
that would
opposite.
yeah, you're shooting the opposite. I don't listen. It's New Year's haze, I guess. I don't know what like but you know what I'm saying. Like they would shoot the opposite way, so the puck would go towards wherever the rest of the action is. So they would shoot at the pad. The puck would go directly onto someone else's stick. Bang! It's a goal. They did that multiple times throughout the playoffs. If you go back and watch those runs where when they won the Stanley Cup, Mike Sullivan really employed that system well to where they scored a bunch of those garbage goals where they really needed one or they were down one or they were, they needed a goal really badly. And that's how they got a lot of their offense. If you try to be pretty and try to pass it or get a perfect shot in a scenario that sees holes for none of those things, you're going to get no shots on goal and the puck is going to go the other way. That is one of the fundamental issues that I have with their current system right now is that the Rangers a lot of the times force a pass. They love nothing more than trying to force a pass on an odd man rush. I mean, if we had a nickel every time, these people try to force a pretty pass through two defenders on a 3-on-2, we could buy the team.
Oh, I was going to say afford a hot dog at a Ranger game, but
well, that true. Yeah, well, it's the same price actually. I don't know if you know that, but it's the same. It's the same price tag. But like that's one of the differences that I think needs to be addressed is just like you don't have to just read your own book. Sometimes you can steal someone else's page. Sometimes you don't have to just write a book and say this is it. That this is all I'm reading and this is the fact, the truth, and nothing else matters. Sometimes you have to take a look at what other coaches are doing that's working and say, hey, instead of forcing the pass, let's try shooting for a rebound that goes the other way, and whoever's skating down that side can just tap it in, easy goal. Teams have been doing it for forever. The Penguins did a really good job of it when they were really good when they were winning Stanley Cups and they were on those runs. They got to change something because all these 3-on-2, I'm going to pass it 8 times and that's going to go this way. And, maybe hopefully get on Sports Center. Like, dude, just score a goal. Score a goal, man.
All right. So one thing I want to say in rebuttal to that, this is not a new phenomena. This has been a problem with the Rangers since Alain Vigneault was the coach and David Quinn was the coach. They have always been a selective team. They have always been a choosy team. I don't think that's fair to blame on the system or how the coach wants them to play, because they've been doing this for a while now. They did this under David Quinn. The amount of times David Quinn would complain about them playing East-West, like, David, I don't know if you know this, but you're the coach. We are the public. We
Right.
cannot change the behavior of your team. It's the same
Right.
thing with Gallant saying they're getting too fancy. Well, coach, you run practice. You run the team. We are the public. We cannot do anything. You being passive aggressive when you're talking to Vince or to Molly Walker is not changing the behavior of your team. If the team is not playing the way you want them to play, and you can't get the inspired change you want out of them, that reflects poorly on you. This is the same thing about with him talking about the way Lafreniere has played and some of the younger guys have played. You are their guy. You are supposed to be the one that can get change out of them. And if you can't coach them the way they need to be coached, you need to find someone else on your staff who can work with them in a way they need to be worked with. Not every player is the same. Everybody needs to be managed a little bit differently. Everybody has their own personality, their own strengths and weaknesses. You got to be able to find a way, because if you're just going to throw your hands up and say, well, I'm going to healthy scratch him and maybe he'll change his attitude because of that, that's not, there's no guarantee you're going to get the desired change behavior based on that. It's maddening to see this. This has been the same thing with this organization forever. How many times are we going to see this team mismanage a younger forward and they put a lot of stock into and take longer than they should? It took Chris Kreider 3 seasons to fully break through. And then that 4th season was the 2014 season where the 2013-2014 season where he finally stuck at the NHL level full time. We're going on this is year 3 of Lafreniere. We're going on to year 4. At some point, you need to figure out what this kid needs. Everybody says, well, he's not that great of a skater. You can get by not being that great of a skater if you have other parts of your game. And they haven't developed those other parts of his game. And now they're at a point where they need him to be a 50, 60-point guy. And he can't do it because they never gave him an opportunity to do it in previous seasons.
The Rangers for forever now, and this is funny that I'm wearing a retro of Vince Carter jersey right now. The Rangers need a Vince Carter in that they need someone to just be like, give me the puck, get out of my way. I'm going to absolutely just get into the zone and score a goal. Like, the Rangers don't have that kind of player. They haven't had one for a long while. They need somebody that will just give me the puck, get out of my way. I'm not passing it to you. I'm not doing this 8-pass east-west whatever nonsense to get me on ESPN. I'm not doing any of that. I need the ball. I mean, in this case, I guess the ball because it's Vince Carter. But like, I need the puck. Get out of my way. I am going to do whatever I can to put points/goals on the board for my team. The Rangers have a lot of unselfish to a point type players where they have a great opportunity to shoot. They're in the slot. They're deep in the face-off circle. Like they have the space. They have the opportunity, and they see 3 defense. Like they see a defenseman, like 2 forwards, like in between them, because every team in the NHL knows the Rangers love passing the puck, so everybody is like blocking the pass, and the player that has a stick for the Rangers is just like, I'm gonna try to get the pass through anyway. Let's see what happens. Instead of just shooting the puck, dude, just shoot, man. Like it's really maddening sometimes. When it works out, it's pretty. It's a goal, great. But a lot of the times when they just need a shot on goal, they try to pass. Dude, just put it on net.
So again, they don't have any shoot first guys. Their only shoot first guy is Kreider. He's the only one on their entire team who is a shoot first guy.
Well, I guess Trouba, but he never hits the net. So
defenseman and forward are different. That's a different conversation. That's a different conversation.
Right.
But again, they have assembled this team in a way where they have emphasized certain things. They've emphasized intangibles. They have emphasized things that don't necessarily translate to goals. They have emphasized a lot of different things. The one other trend I wanted to point out before we moved on and started talking a little bit broader looking forward, the defense has gotten better. It's still not great, and it's mostly because the goaltending has improved. But the defensive results over the last couple of weeks have steadied. They're still not great, but the third pair is becoming the low event third pair you would like. The second pair is not getting 80% of the goals against. And the first pair is still controlling play, even though they're conceding a little bit more offense than they have in years past. The defense stabilizing is really gone a long way because now they don't need 5 to win every night. Now they only need 3 or 4 to win every night. And that might sound like equivocating and being like, it's okay that the defense is bad. But for about the entire month of November, the defense was god awful. Yes, you would like it to get better so the workload on the goaltender isn't as challenging, but the defense is getting better. That's encouraging. The third pair, I don't think Ben Harper is a long-term solution on that third
I
pair.
would
I
hope
think
not.
the results are getting better. We have mocked Ben Harper for being tall, and that's the only reason he's in the NHL. That is
Well,
fair. But the results are average. He is
okay, yeah,
playing like
yeah,
a replacement level defenseman, which is all they needed from that spot to
right.
play opposite Braden Schneider, who is playing pretty damn well. Braden Schneider has played really well, all things considered.
The thing
That's the
about Ben,
last thing.
yeah,
Oh, God.
I mean, the thing about Ben Harper is that like we make fun of Ben Harper because one, he had atrocious results everywhere else beforehand, and two, he's playing okay, which
Yeah.
is fine for now. The is he the sixth defenseman moving forward? I would hope not. I would hope they get a sixth defenseman that is better than league average at best, at the best of times. Because right now Ben Harper is slightly below average. If you take a look at the analytics and you take a look at
Yeah.
like how he's
Slightly below
playing,
average.
he is
Yeah.
slightly below average. For a fill-in sixth defenseman right now,
That's fine.
he's fine. He's not doing bad. The problem is that if this becomes a long-term thing, like if this is his peak, his floor is a lot of there's a lot of red in the floor. Is basically like he's not an NHL defenseman when he's playing poorly. You do not want Ben Harper on the ice for your NHL team. So right now he's playing well for his standards. So he's slightly below average. He's okay. The thing about him long term is that don't have Ben Harper play on your team long term if you're at the NHL level. Like you really need another defenseman that can at the worst of times be an average defenseman. If your sixth defenseman is at the best of times slightly below average, that's just not going to cut it. He's playing well right now, and I'm happy for him. I'm happy he's getting the opportunity to play at the NHL level again, and I'm happy that he's playing decently well and he's playing okay and all these things. But long term, I doubt that he can maintain this. And even if he does maintain it, he's still a below average defenseman. So they still need a replacement there, despite Ben Harper doing everything he can. And to his credit, he's holding on.
He's holding on, and that was the biggest thing because Schneider's playing well enough where as long as his partner isn't sinking him, that's really all you need from that spot at the moment. Yes, they probably need an extra defenseman just in case, because you should probably have 7 defensemen you can trust that the coach trusts enough to play. Whether or not he can come to trust Zach Jones or Lieber Hayek, that's a different conversation. We'll worry about that a little bit down the road, more terms of playoffs and that kind of thing. But for now, they still got to worry about getting to the playoffs because it's not as much of a foregone conclusion as it was coming into the season because the Devils are better than everybody expected. The Capitals and Penguins playing like we expect. The Islanders, I still really can't get a great read on them because they're so inconsistent. They're like a really bad version of what the Rangers are, where it's really relying on the goaltending and like 4 guys to score all the goals. That's really all the Islanders are. Like, I don't know if you know this or not, but they were playing Casey Cizikas on the first line last night against the Kraken and playing Mark Barzell on the wing.
Yeah.
So, like, the Islanders are trying here, but if everything goes well for the Rangers here, you get one other of those teams in the Metro to kind of regress a little bit. You play a little bit better and you just get in. Because I don't think you're going to be in any kind of situation where you could talk about winning the division, getting to that 2 seed. You're probably going to be one of the wild cards or that 3 seed. And yes, I know 2nd place and 6th place are 2 points apart right now. I just don't feel as confident about this Rangers team as I did about last year's team because the goaltender's not playing like a Super Saiyan this year. He's very good. Igor's still playing really, really good. But he's not playing like he's the best goalie in the league. And the Rangers' math most nights is difficult, especially if they don't score on the power play. That's really the biggest difference between this year and last year's team is the goaltending is, I'd say 80% of what last year's goaltending was. Still very good, top 5 goaltending. But the power play is middle of the pack. It's 16th. That's not good enough for a team that's below average at 5-on-5.
It's been the same issue that we've been talking about for
weeks now.
This is episode 29 for 29 episodes of just this team can't score at 5-on-5, and if they don't score on the power play, they can't score. Period. They don't do it. So against Florida, they managed a couple of goals because Bobrovsky is bad. There was a couple of 2-on-1s that he gave up goals on that you can't really do much about. He got dumpstered by his own player on one of those goals. When they tried to skate back and they hit Bobrovsky in the head. I'm glad he's okay. At least he looks. Hopefully he's all right. But a couple of those goals that he gave up, those the 5-hole goals, I think was the Banajak goal was one where he totally lost the puck. It bobbled on him, and Bobrovsky's like, I'm gonna let that one go. It's fine. And then the Panarin goal that somehow like it was. I think the puck went at 3 miles an hour, and still Bobrovsky was like, I'll get the next one. It's like I don't know what Bob was doing on those two. Also, by the way, gets paid $10 million, but that's a whole different. That's a problem for the Florida Panthers podcasters to talk about more so than us. So I guess for the Rangers, be happy that Bobrovsky did that for you. Late Christmas present, late holiday present for them. But if the goalie is less bad, then you need to find more creative ways to score 5-on-5. Trying to force passes and trying to get the pretty play going at 5-on-5 is not going to work against pretty much any team in the NHL. I mean, it might work against like Montreal or teams that don't have a great defensive system because they're just not a very good hockey team. But even against middling teams, that's just not gonna fly. And the power play needs to either get better or like what are the two things needs to happen for them offensively? Either the power play becomes the top power play in the NHL, no questions asked at all times. Like this is McDavid Draisaitl level of power play output, or start scoring 5-on-5 more consistently. That's it. That's the end of the sentence. If the Rangers don't do one of those two things, then it's curtains.
Yeah, I mean, and it sounds very simple, like basic to reduce it to that, but that's really what it comes down to. I mean, you need to score 3 to 4 goals every night if you want a good chance of winning most nights. Yes, having Igor helps. If you want to say you need 3 every night, you still got to find a way to score 3 goals. And you're not getting that a lot at 5-on-5. When the 5-on-5 goal producers are Kreider's producing at 5-on-5, not on the power play, which to the detriment of the power play isn't as good. You're getting Jimmy Vesey goals. You're getting Julien Gauthier goals. You are not getting a lot of Zibanejad and Panarin and Trocheck at 5-on-5. You are not getting a ton from the kids at 5-on-5 because they're not getting a lot of ice time. And it's reducing it all to a math problem of can we score 3 goals while only conceding 2? It sounds very, very simple, but when you reduce it to that, that's what you're trying to do every night. Can you find a way to consistently score 3 to 4 goals? Against bad defensive teams like Florida, that's not an issue. They got 5. Against Tampa, they got 1. And Tampa's not a great defensive team. Yes, that's mostly because Vasilevsky's outstanding. You still got to be able to beat good goalies because when you get to the playoffs, you are going to play the Vasilevskys of the world. You are going to play the very good goaltenders of the world when you get there. And you're going to have to be able to play against different styles of teams because you're going to be against good teams in the playoffs. And it's great that they've gotten out of the funk and now we're more worried about, okay, let's make the playoffs. What can they do once they get there as opposed to are they going to fire the coach? And no matter what, I know there will always be the contingent of people who say, well, if this isn't the right coach, get the right coach in here. You and I have talked about this ad nauseum over the last couple months. None of the retread coaches are particularly enticing or going to change anything all that dramatically to improve what's wrong with the team right now. They won't fire the coach in season. If they miss the playoffs, I could see maybe they get rid of Gallant and bring somebody else in after the season, but that's only if they miss the playoffs. Right now, I just need to find offense. That is what this team needs very badly. And they need, I think realistically, the obvious answer here is they need to find combinations that better suit everybody's skill sets because they've been playing Trocheck with Panarin for most of the season. And those two guys don't complement each other. Trocheck is a volume guy who needs to be down low, banging the puck towards the net, playing below the goal line. And Panarin is a finesse guy. He wants that cross-seam pass. He's looking always for somebody to set up to make a better play and for guys who are able to play off of him. That's not really working. I liked what they were doing when they had Zibanejad with Panarin. I would like to see Hedel with Panarin. I would like to see Trocheck with Kreider again at some point if they go away from KZK as the first line. I would like to see Lafreniere with Trocheck and just find a way to get the secondary scoring going because they need. I don't think the coach is going to be willing to change the personnels on the power plays, which is the only real solution at this point with the power play not executing is, okay, you need a left-handed guy opposite Zibanejad on the one-timer. Okay, so you're going to take Panarin off? I'm okay with that. Have Panarin at the point instead of Trouba on the second power play. Evenly distribute the power play time between the two. Be willing to try something different on the power play. It just hasn't worked this year. And I don't think the difference of Trocheck to Strome skill set wise is enough to make that a real tangible difference that it's this much worse than last year's. I think teams are cued into how they want to play. They're not adjusting. Change the personnel so that way you don't have to worry about the players adjusting and unlearning behavior. Because like we were saying before about they like to overpass, they've been doing this forever. It's really hard to get these guys to change their behaviors once they're already ingrained in them.
The thing, and I tweeted this out last week as well on my personal account at Chelney Andrew, CHELNEY Andrew, is that the problem with the Rangers firing Gallant, and you mentioned this, is okay. Well, who do they bring in? Because the pretty name, the biggest name is Barry Trotz, and we talked about this before. That Barry does a lot of the same lineup decisions that Gallant does that people don't appreciate, that people don't find really all that great. So okay, well, Trotz is kind of the same thing as Gallant, and why fire Gallant at that point? Okay, well, the Rangers aren't going to hire a new name because they want someone that is experienced and a veteran to lead them to the promised land. They are not going to try this new person to take over a playoff team and all of a sudden win 16 games and then lift the cup in June. The Rangers aren't going to do that either. Okay, so that's kind of the Rangers are between a rock and a hard place in terms of their head coach, because if the Rangers like lose the next 5 in a row, for example, and Gallant is out, they need someone to replace him with. Saying that you want Gallant fired and actually having a good idea of someone to bring in is two different things. These are not the same things, because as much as we like to highlight what Gallant is doing improperly and what kind of the more baffling decisions that he's made throughout his tenure as a Rangers head coach, the one thing that you have to look at is, okay, well, if he's gone, who do you hire? The biggest name is Barry Trotz, but he does a lot of the same things that Gallant does. So there's kind of a reason to bring him in. And okay, so now what? Who's your is you know Penn's gonna fire Paul Maurice so that the Rangers can hire him? Like he's gonna coach his 18th team in the NHL and get no results out of them too. Like what you need more than just the idea of a fire. You need someone to bring in, and the Rangers won't go after a new name that hasn't coached at the NHL level. Maybe if it was 5 years ago, instead of hiring David Quinn, they would have tried someone else. Maybe that would have gotten them down a different path. But right now, they tried David Quinn. That was an experiment. I gotta say, that was one of the experiments of all time. And now you hire Gerard Gallant, who has his own share of faults and who's been coaching an inconsistent team. Okay, will you fire him? You don't have a name right now. I'm open to ideas. I'm open to suggestions. That's not Barry Trotz. But right now, like Mark Messier isn't coaching this team. Like there's it's not happening. I know the pipe dream is to get Mark Messier and Wayne Gretzky and all these guys behind the Rangers bench, and you bring the whole 94 Cup team, just put them on the bench, and you'll win 8 cups in a row. Maybe your dreams, but realistically, like that's not how coaching works.
No, and that's what it's very easy to say things. Andrew and I have been saying for basically the entire season. There is no obvious solution. If we had one, we would propose one to you guys.
Sure.
We can identify what the problems are, but the solutions are not straightforward and obvious. It is going to take trial and error and experimentation and figuring out who plays better with who and what players need to be used in what situation. That is something we have been asking for, to try things instead of just doing the same thing over and over again. At some point, you would think the professional head coach would acknowledge, hey, what I'm doing isn't working. Let me see what else we can do other than just juggling the lines back to what he feels comfortable with. Because that's the issue here. It's not that he's not trying things, it's that he is just doing what he feels safe with. He is putting Gaudreau in the top six. He is demoting the kids ice time. He is finding ways to try and turn every game into a 0-0, 1-0 kind of game, because that's the type of game he feels the Rangers can win, because the Rangers have high-end talent. The Rangers have more high-end talent than most teams. That's the ideal game state for the Rangers. They want to be in those really close games where the goaltending can keep them in it. All they need is one play from Panarin, one play from Zibanejad, one play from Kreider. They win the game. That was the entire playoff run last year, was hang around long enough in the game. Shesterkin keeps us in it. Let's get one big goal. We can win 3-2, 4-3, and we'll be all right. We're not there yet. We still need to get the in-between part before we start worrying about the playoff formula. They still have to make the playoffs. And this week, you got Carolina, who's very good. You've got the Devils on Saturday, who are okay, good, not amazing. And then you've got Montreal sprinkled in between. And the Canadians aren't very good, but the Rangers just don't play well in Montreal for whatever reason. They haven't, like, ever. Just like as long as I've been following hockey, the Rangers just never play well at the Bell Center. So this week will be interesting. I really am curious to see how they play against Carolina, because Carolina's fast. They forecheck aggressively. They'll pressure the Rangers into making mistakes, especially in their own end defensively. So I'm very curious. This is a good test week for the Rangers. I know we said that last week because you played Washington for the first time and you played Tampa, who's a very good team. This is a really good week to see what the Rangers are really going to be about, because they've got a couple days off sprinkled in here. It's every other day, so you'll get 3 Shesterkin starts unless they want to go to Halak for whatever reason. Put together 3 consistent games in a row. You don't have to win all 3, but put together a consistent effort in 3 straight games. That's my goal for the week.
The Rangers need 5 points. The
Yeah.
Rangers need 5 out of 6 points in the next 3 games. They absolutely, unequivocally need to beat Montreal no matter what. No matter what, they need 2 points out of that game. Again, the more points you give up, as we talked about earlier on the season, the more points you give up to bad teams, the harder it'll be to collect points against the good teams. You need to beat Montreal at all costs. I don't care in what fashion. Hopefully in regulation, that would be great. That would be very cash money of them to do so for tiebreaker purposes and all these things. Regulation wins count the most, so you need to bank those. And Montreal doesn't need the points per se, so just you should win in regulation. Carolina's won 11 in a row. 11 in a row. Also, I will be there against Carolina. So if you are going to be there, let me know. Drop me a line. DM, tweet, whatever. I will be at the game. The Rangers are 29-2 when I'm at Madison Square Garden, and one of those 2 losses was against the Hurricanes last season. So I will be there for the revenge game, and this is where the Rangers will break that 11 game in a row win streak for them. Hopefully, I'm putting my record on the line here for this ridiculous, inconsistent team that shows up sometimes and then doesn't other times. So fingers crossed for that. But for you play the Carolina tomorrow, a team that, as you said, that really solid team. Obviously, they've won 11 in a row. They're firing in all cylinders. Kochetkov, their goalie, has been playing amazing. I think he just won Rookie of the Month or something like that. Like he's been on fire. Montreal, terrible team. You got to get 2 points out of them. And against New Jersey, New Jersey's been on free fall. They have looked really bad for a few weeks now, and I don't really know how to read them. Like they can show up and look good again because it's the Rangers, and the Rangers could on any given night make anybody look good because they tend not to show up sometimes, and that makes teams look much better than they really are. Or the Rangers can actually show up and put some goals up on the board, and this could be a hockey game. Like the Rangers, 2 of the 3 games are must wins in terms of standing positioning. And the other game is really important to win because the team that you're playing is a dumpster fire and you need to collect points in any way, shape, or form that you can. If you lose in overtime or whatever against New Jersey or against Carolina, that makes sense. And that's something that is acceptable, I guess. But like these are points that you desperately need to get against these teams. And the Rangers can get 6 points here. 5 is the low mark that they need to hit. This is a must need hit that the Rangers need to have.
Yeah, no, that's the thing here. We're running out of games. We're about that midway point now. You really need to be getting 4 out of every 6 to be safe. To be safe, to keep pace with the teams around you, you're going to need to keep rattling off 4 and 5 points out of 6 possible point stretches. All right, let's do 3 stars. Get out of here. So you could go first, Andrew.
So my 3 stars are Capo Caco. He played really well against Florida. He had those couple of assists. He played well throughout the week. He looked really good against Florida. Those passes that he made, they were crisp. They were on the tape. He has looked really good. Yaro Halak also played very well against Florida. And when else am I going to give him a star? Then that if I don't give him one now, so he gets one. He played really well. He kept the Rangers in the game for some of that. Like
Definitely.
he played well. Like he deserves a star. Obviously, Shesterkin is going to get the star more frequently and all these things, and he's the star forever and always. But for this week, Yaro Halak played well against Florida. He deserves it. Lafreniere, you're doing great, sweetie. It's just one of those things where we talked about earlier, where he's a number 1 overall pick, yeah, but he has none of the amenities, and so he's trying his best to make do of the situation. And we got a tweet because I posted, like if you have any questions or pie recipes that you wanna tweet at us or whatever, then we'll mention throughout the show. And someone said, if you're concerned that if we're concerned that Lafreniere's favorite pie recipe includes smelling salts, and the answer is no, because he has that dog in him.
Yeah, very straightforward. Very, very straightforward. I'm not worried about Lafreniere. I'm not worried about Kakko. I'm not worried about Hedel. A little worried about Kravtsov, but that's just because they don't know what they want to do with him. I mean, he's playing okay in the spurts he has been playing. He's been good since the last healthy scratch he got. But my 3, I've got Schneider, I've got Key, both really good in the last week and a half. Keandre starting to find that rhythm that we saw last year, especially down the stretch and into the playoffs, where covering for a lot of Trouba's mistakes, breaking up 2-on-1s, using that long reach to be in every single place at once. Kakko, like you said, 2 really good assists. I think he has 9 points in his last 11 games, something like that. He's been playing really well the last couple of weeks. Very straightforward stuff from us. Okay. 3 games this week. We'll talk to you guys next week. Make sure you are subscribed to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're on all the major podcasting platforms. If you prefer video, we are on YouTube. We're live every Monday, Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube on those platforms. On social, Liberty Blue Pod on Twitter and Instagram. My personal handle is Nick Zararis, Nick, Zararis. Andrews is Chelney Andrew, Chelney. We will see you guys next week. Hope everybody had a good New Year. We'll see you guys then.
Later.